is going on, everybody? Welcome into a Wednesday night special. I think that this is our first time in 9 years rolling on a Wednesday here.
It's like
But
Maction, baby.
yep,
Maction.
yeah, absolutely. Conference USA and Mac pushed to the side because SEC talk is here on prime time. And boy, what a weekend it was, both in SEC on the field and off the field too, because we definitely going to get some big news out of Baton Rouge. But most of the talk is going to be towards Week 10 preview. We are on Wednesday, so it's been a couple of days since Saturday. But teams that impressed, Ole Miss continues to impress. Texas A&M, I think, is definitely a lock at this point. I don't really foresee themselves, losing two, like three or more games during this stretch here coming up. And then Vandy get a big win at home against Mizzou. So, Wade, with all that, how was your weekend, and what do you got to say? What went down on both Saturday and Sunday?
Yeah, not a good week for us LSU fans. Not a good week for Louisiana sports fans in general. But hey, on to bigger and brighter things. Like you said, A&M's hot. Led to Brian Kelly's demise. We're going to get into that in just a second here. But let's give props to A&M before that gets lost, because I know we're not going to do a full recap, but man, this team does look legit. And Marcel Reed, I think you could say that he's a Heisman frontrunner based on the rest of the college football landscape. There's nobody else that really jumps out in my mind. So kudos to A&M, but yeah, rough time for the Tigers.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will get into that in a few minutes. And like Wade mentioned, we're not going to do any recaps. We're just going to get right into the big news because we didn't really want to push it too far in the show where it got, into the hot topics. I didn't really feel like it's pretty big. I know that Florida fans can be like, well, why did you start off with Billy Napier? I mean, if you've been tuning into the show, we believe purple and gold. So we're going to start off with that. Before we get into that, if you have any questions, both to this big news out of Baton Rouge, I'm sure we're going to have a lot of LSU fans chiming in here. But as you mentioned, with the games that happened previously in week number 9, if you have any questions pertaining to how your team is looking, potential playoffs about on the line here over the next couple of weeks, as we're now into the week number 10, now into double digits, and the games are really going to start getting real as we flip the calendar from October to November. So if you have any questions, statements, or concerns, feel free to leave us a comment, and we will get to it here at the end of the show. Also, go through the comments on YouTube and Facebook. So I'll do my best to monitor that and get to it at the end of the show after a hot topic segment. So, Wade, before you and I give our takes on this, our friend Chet sent me this very lengthy. Well, it doesn't really say that it's lengthy, but you know what? I tried to get him on the show here, but he's out with a friend at dinner. But he did promise me that he was going to give himself a quote of what his takeaways. But to be honest with you, reading through this, it feels like this is Chet 5% and Chat GPT 95%. But I'll go through this pretty quickly here. Ladies and gentlemen, Tiger Nation, grab your beignets, grab your jambalaya, grab whatever lucky voodoo doll you've been using to get us through the season, because the day of deliverance is here. Brian Kelly is gone. I have never heard Tiger Stadium sound so relieved. You could feel the SEC send a group text like, uh-oh, LSU might be dangerous again. Let's talk about it. We survived the fake Cajun accent. We survived the family speech. We survived one of the most chaotic Coach O impersonations ever attempted in human history. The man rolled into Louisiana talking like he watched one 90-second YouTube video titled How to Sound Southern, and then swallowed a harmonica. Well, man, ChatGPT is really going off on here today. I'll give him this. He tried so hard, but every time he said go, it sounded like Google Translate malfunctioning. Now, look, Brian Kelly wasn't terrible. He wasn't catastrophic. He just wasn't LSU. You can't fake the culture here. You can't download it. You can't order it off Amazon with 2 days shipping. You either believe purple and gold or you don't. We watch elite talent get wasted like a crawfish boil left out in July heat. We watch our defense disappear like Brian's real accent. We watch Saturdays in Death Valley feel like Wednesday PTA meetings. No more of that. We are LSU. We are Death Valley. We are the team that makes grown coaches consider a career change after a night game. The Brian Kelly era is over. The accent has left the building, and the spiritual humidity dropped by 30%. So to the next coach, bring passion, bring swagger, bring football that makes Alabama nervous again because LSU just woke up and the whole SEC better tighten their chin straps. Go Tigers. Wade, what do you think about that speech?
Hey, I mean, I think Chet's a great poet.
Yeah.
But all things considered, I agree. I think that no, it was not catastrophic. LSU went 34-13 or whatever it was in his 4+ years here on the Bayou, but it just wasn't that traditional LSU football brand that you've become accustomed to, and I think because of that, the struggle was amplified. You know, if
Yeah.
he resonated with the fans, I think that you could swallow a loss like we had on Saturday, but um, I just felt like Brian Kelly was doing everything he could to alienate himself there at the end and just not even show that he cared. Not even it wasn't that he had to fit in. He just had to show that he cared. I think when Ed Orgeron got fired, people were doing everything they possibly could to give him a second chance and to believe in him and to reason with him. And ultimately, we reached the same conclusion. But this one, I mean, it just felt like a foregone conclusion that fans wanted him out the door, the administration wanted him out the door, and that he maybe even wanted to be out the door. So I don't know what your thoughts are there, but I agree. It just was kind of a wacky fit from the start. I think it was a good hire at the time, but it just didn't age well.
Yeah, I agree with you. Just to give a little rundown, if you missed it, I'm sure that you already read the details on this. But not only was Brian Kelly fired, but offense coordinator Joan Sloan has also been fired. That's the only changes so far. Frank Wilson, who was the running back coach during this tenure, Frank Wilson has really been LSU through and through. He had that really stint of being UTSA's head coach, but really most of his life and his his collegiate career, he started at Edna Carr. He, was high school coach there, and now he was the running backs coach. So now he will be the interim coach. But I agree with your sentiment. This is the culture. I grew up watching LSU be a very physical team. It started with Nick Saban. It continued with Les Miles. It even continued with Coach O. Even really outside of that 2020 and 2021 season where it really got away from Coach O, you really saw that physical presence, from like 16, 17, and even 18, and even especially the 2019 season. But it just felt like under Brian Kelly's tenure, it started off well in year number one. You got Jaden Daniels from the transfer portal. You beat Alabama in that overtime game where you went for two, ended up working out, ended up beating Alabama 32-31. You ended up winning the SEC West, but you did have, remember in the last game of the regular season, you went on the road to a 4-8, 5-7 Texas A&M team, and you got manhandled. You did, though, since this was West and East divisions, you did win the West, go to the SEC championship. You ended up losing 50-30. That game was never close. But really, outside of year number one, that's about as high as the program that has been under Brian Kelly. It's like, he went to the Cheez-It Bowl that year. Really, outside of that, it hasn't really been too much. In 2023, you had the most talented offense, but the defense was very lacking. And then, 2024 and 2025, 2024, you had a really talented offensive line. Defense was abysmal again. You really couldn't run the football. And then heading into 2025, Brian Kelly, I've heard this multiple times that he donated $1 million. To be honest with you, that's nothing to him. That doesn't really mean anything to me. But this was an $18 million roster. Preseason expectations, you were preseason number 5 heading into the season. You get a big win at the time against a really good Clemson team, but you could really see, this team wasn't as good as it was on paper. The Louisiana Tech game, you only put up like 26 points in that game. The Florida game, you won 20-10. I mean, you're just winning games. Even Brian Kelly said after the Florida game, how he went off on that WBRZ sports director and all that. Just the attitude about him, the culture. It felt like he didn't give a shit, to be honest with you. He got his money and got out. To be honest with you, the contract is stupid nowadays. I'm really sick of all these guaranteed contracts, 10 years, because who the hell is really staying at a program for 10 years now? With the transfer portal and the NIL, like what's the maximum that you're getting here? Like maybe 5 good years, but most of the times they're either getting fired like within 2 or 3 seasons, or they're going somewhere else because they have a better opportunity. So I'm really over these 10-year like contracts. Was he worth $100 million at the time? Maybe coming from Notre Dame, but Notre Dame fans were right in the end. Brian Kelly was always the problem. It was not a Notre Dame problem. You're seeing what Marcus Freeman is building. I mean, in a couple of years, Marcus Freeman had him in the national championship and just a couple of plays away from being the national champs against Ohio State. This year, it was a slow start for Notre Dame, a couple of close losses to Texas A&M and Miami, but really outside of that,
doesn't look bad now.
Yeah, I think that Notre Dame is going to run the table looking at their schedule, but I just don't think Brian Kelly really fit the culture. I think that a lot of people are saying it wasn't much of a culture fit, and I definitely agree with that. You got to bring it because LSU is different. You can't just walk in here and be like, oh, I'm just like, honestly, he was way too stubborn. Joe Sloan should have never been the offense coordinator in the first place, and letting Mike Denbrock and even Tommy Moffitt go was really the death blows of Brian Kelly. We saw it in the regime, even with Les Miles. That's how Les Miles got fired, and that's how Coach O got fired. He made some dumb decisions of his coordinators, with Bo Pelini and now Brian Kelly here. We will see what happens, moving forward. But Wade, before we get into what's next, do you have anything to add to this?
I want to play a little exercise with you here,
Sure.
just to kind of sum it up. If you had to describe the Brian Kelly tenure at LSU in one word, what would it be?
I would say underwhelming, especially with the contract that he had. I mean, this was an all-in year. You saw the boosters have the buy-in, $18 million roster. It just felt like it's soft. I saw it. If you're watching the game, did you see Cassius Howell, really what he did to the offensive lineman?
Yeah.
That's all you need to see in that game. This was the game where LSU this was a must-win game, and that's how you play in the second half. That's all I need to know what Brian Kelly was in this era. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but I'll let you have your opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I like the word you used earlier, stubborn. I just felt like he kind of was always going against the grain of how things were done at LSU in the past, whether it was game day details like moving the team out of Lod Cook to the Renaissance, or not allowing former players in the facility at certain times. I just think that he missed the mark on some stuff like that. So, yeah, I'll go stubborn as my word.
All right, so now we pretty much went through how this went down. Now let's go on to what's next and where does LSU go from here. Before we really get into the discussion of where does LSU go from here, LSU's pretty in a messy situation right now. You had the governor say some things at the press conference. We will get into that. But right now, LSU currently doesn't have a sitting president right now. Right now, they have interim president. With I believe it happened earlier this year where William Tate got pushed out. Now he's the president at Rutgers. So it even sounds like, let's go ahead and bring in the governor here. He said pretty much today that Scott Woodward is not even going to have a say in this. And to be honest with you, if he doesn't have a say in this, then that probably means that Scott Woodward is going to be next to get fired here pretty soon here. If you just a couple of tidbits from his press conference, he pretty much brought up, with the Jimbo Fisher contract. But what he doesn't realize is that the AD that went after him extended Jimbo Fisher. It was going to be a Jimbo Fisher, looking at his buyout, it was $76 million, and that's how it got to this. This was all Scott Woodward. Like I mentioned, I'm very aggravated on these 10-year multi-million contracts, where I come from at this point. But I feel like, the board of supervisors are definitely going to have a say in this. The boosters are going to have a say in this decision. But if Scott Woodward isn't making, really the main hire in this one, obviously the governor won't be involved in this one as much as you want to. But where LSU goes from here, definitely a lot of candidates on the table. I think that the most popular candidates right now, what I'm hearing is Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss, and then a couple of dark horses. Eli Drinkwitz of Missouri. You have John Sumrall of Tulane, and then you have some dark horse candidates as well. Along with that, you have Kenny Dillingham of Arizona State and Brent Key of Georgia Tech. Obviously, you have the big fish that you could call like the Nick Sabans and Dan Lannings of the world. Will that happen? Who knows? But wait, if you were obviously talk about the governor situation before we get into that, and then we will go to maybe our top three or our potential candidate moving forward.
Yeah, I mean LSU is going to be in a very I guess unprecedented situation. I don't think anybody's replaced a governor, athletic director, head football coach, and university president all within a calendar year, but that's kind of what the state is facing. And it does start from the top. Landry obviously brought in a different regime politically in our state compared to John Bell Edwards. And with that, did come a change with the university president. It's unfortunate because I think William Tate was the glue that held a lot together at LSU. But it absolutely does trickle on down to athletics because right now LSU doesn't have a president to make these decisions. So the governor has an expanded role. And that's kind of where we entered this debacle. But honestly, I just kind of wish we would keep things separate and let the process play out. I mean, publicly saying that about Scott Woodward, as you said, I mean, how do you come back from that? I mean, you basically just announced that he was canned.
Yeah, right. I definitely think it is a sticky. Yeah, go ahead. Continue.
I was just going to say you don't pay him millions to stay out of the biggest decision that he's going to have to make in his tenure. So I disagree with the comments. I wish that Governor Landry would just kind of stay in his lane. I did see I guess to lighten the mood, I did see a tweet that said that Governor Landry is a sleeper cell from ULL to destroy LSU from within. That too. And I think we're kind of in that territory because, I mean, look, no top tier agent or coach wants to have to deal with the amount of noise politically that's around this team. And that's one of the things that is different about LSU. And one thing that probably caught Brian Kelly by surprise is, think about it, LSU is in a unique situation as it's the only big state school within the state. Look at other states, you have multiple SEC schools or an SEC and an ACC school. Like every resource we have and every opinion we have is poured into LSU football. That's a big adjustment from a place like Notre Dame that's a private school that doesn't get involved at all politically.
Right.
So I think that's a weird thing. I guess getting into candidates, I mean, I think the list that you mentioned is spot on. I think it'll just be interesting to see who all is interested in the job.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to our Facebook viewers, you did go down there for a brief moment. We are back up. So if you missed any of the Brian Kelly talk, you can always go to our YouTube channel as well to catch any of that. But even when this search was, available in 2021, I was big on Lane Kiffin, and I'm still on the Lane Kiffin train. What he's been able to do at Ole Miss now, that's just a matter of he's going to leave Ole Miss too. And you're going to be in a sticky situation too, timeline-wise, because you don't have this spring transfer portal anymore. It's just going to be a winter transfer portal that's going to be in like December. The playoffs are going to run till it could, Ole Miss, who knows how long they're going to be in this playoff run. Are they going to play in the first round? And if they win the first round, they go to the second round and so forth and so on. So it's like if you do want Lane Kiffin, you're probably going to have to wait until like mid to late December until he's available and off of Ole Miss. I don't think it's going to be a situation where you saw Brian Kelly just dipping on Notre Dame before the college football playoff. Lane Kiffin's definitely going to stay with him. But like I mentioned, the big contracts, to get a guy like Lane Kiffin and even Dan Lanning away from Oregon, you're going to have to pay a lot of money, especially with Jimmy Sexton being Lane Kiffin's agent, which, I mean, Jimmy Sexton, we know who he is. He's pretty much the godfather of all these college football coaches. So I think price-wise, that's going to be on the more expensive side. But like you mentioned, Wade, maybe they go after a guy like John Sumrall, but I just can't really see them, you get a buyout of 54 million. Do you go? Do they see like weird like poaching a guy from in-state? Like, do we really want to hire the Tulane coach? Like, what are your takeaways on that?
Yeah, I think they'll swing big and maybe come back to a guy like Summerall. It's very similar to the search after Orgeron. I mean,
Yeah,
you fired a high-profile coach that just won a national championship for you. In this case, you fire the oldest SEC coach and the winningest active football coach. So you're firing a high-profile guy, and meanwhile, a Group of 5 program's having a really nice year, and they have an attractive coach. It was Billy Napier then. It's John Summerall now. I mean, I was kind of shocked that LSU didn't even entertain Napier, and that ended up being a good decision because he's also looking for a job. So history says no. I don't think that Summerall is at the top of the list. I do think he's a good coach. I think he would be a great fit at Auburn with his Alabama ties. I think he could be a good fit at Arkansas as well. So I don't see him going with Summerall. I mean, look, like you said, you make a buyout like that, it's for a big move. I think they're going to make Dan Lanning say no.
yeah.
I know you don't want to have another 10-year contract,
You got to
$100 million.
That's going to be a tough pull.
That's what it's going to take if you want Dan Lanning. But look, that's okay because he's in his 40s. This would be like a destination job for him. What I don't want to do is offer that kind of contract to like a Urban Meyer or something like that,
Yeah,
so
I definitely agree.
I think it's going to be some big names that are interviewed first, but I wouldn't be surprised if Summerall or somebody enters the picture late.
Yeah, well, we'll have plenty of time to keep track of this as long with the Florida and the Arkansas openings. So we are now up to date on the news that happened this past weekend, how it went down, and where does LSU go from here. So we will keep a track of that over, the month of November and December. I mean, the last time that LSU went through this cycle, Brian Kelly wasn't hired until November 30th. Like I mentioned, if they go after a guy like Dan Lanning or Lane Kiffin, then those guys more likely will be in the playoff. So you couldn't possibly see a date of December when you have a finalization of that. But we will keep track of that. But we will now move on to week number 9, pick'em results. We had 7 games in total in the conference. Weighted 9, pretty much in agreements, and on every single game went 5-2. Chet continues to hover under 500, but he'll look to get back track on week number 10 as he went 3-4 in week number 9. No guest pickers. Pretty lackluster a couple of weeks here in the SEC. But we'll get a couple more guest pickers before the end of the season. And we definitely need to get a guest picker whenever it comes to the playoff and the bowl games to see how they do. Now let's move on to our SEC teams in the AP Top 25 poll. The AP poll is always released on Sunday afternoon. And once I think maybe it's this upcoming week or maybe the next, we will start to see the college football playoff rankings come out. But depending on when we do the show, we will get to that or not. Let's go through this pretty quickly here. Number 3, Texas A&M. They stay the same after Indiana and Ohio State. Ohio State was on the bye week. Indiana continues to look like one of the best teams in the country. Alabama survives against South Carolina. That was a heck of a game. South Carolina blew that one, let's be honest with you. They were up 8 with like 9 minutes to play. And the defense just, once again, delivers for them. But Alabama stays at number 4. They'll be on the bye week before their next test at home against LSU, which is slated for a 6:30 kick. Number 5, Georgia. They are on the bye, so no movement for the Dogs. Ole Miss did move up a couple of spots after their road win against Oklahoma. Vandy did move up a spot after beating Missouri in a defensive game in Nashville on Saturday afternoon, so Vandy continues to move up. Tennessee moving up as well after a shootout against Kentucky, so they are now number 14. Oklahoma slides down to number 18, same with Mizzou at number 19. Texas, man, if you missed that game, it looks like Texas was dead in the water, down 38-17, and Texas stormed all the way back in overtime to win that one 45-38. Mississippi State continues to have like these big-time leagues. You saw it in the Tennessee game. You saw in the Texas game, and they're just letting these slip away. So you got to feel for Mississippi State. we did have LSU fall out of the top 25 poll. Obviously, you probably won't see them again unless they go undefeated the rest of the way. But what are your thoughts overall on where the SEC teams stand heading into Week 10?
I mean, I think they nailed it. I think you could make an argument that Texas A&M is the best team in the country, but I'm not going to fault the voters for keeping it how they had it. But I think that the order shakes out quite nicely here. We will see a few of these teams play. Texas and Georgia will play. Tennessee and Vanderbilt will play. I think Oklahoma and Missouri play, maybe. I might have that wrong. And I guess, A&M and Texas. But I was going to say A&M kind of has a smooth trip from here on out. They do play Missouri as well. But Missouri, while they deserve to be ranked, they did have a pretty devastating injury. So I don't think that team's really a top 20 team moving forward. But I mean, I don't want to drop them out yet.
That was definitely a blow for that offense. It felt like they were in that game for the majority of that, but once Bo Pabula went down, it felt like Vandy had that one the rest of the way. So that is where the SEC teams stand. We were just like fluctuating up and down. We had Texas. We didn't know if they were going to be in this, but they survived in Starkville for at least one more week. Now let's get on to our SEC Fantasy Week 9 results. Wade did win last week to get the score to 6-2. We also did play in fantasy football. It's crazy how fast the season's gone because it felt like we were just playing in week number 1, but Wade did take the cake. Just a terrible fantasy football season for myself as I now fall to 1-7. But I guess we will see how the rest of our season plays out. But Wade, let's go through your team. It looks like you got pretty much everything from your quarterback and your running back. Defense-wise, though, I mean, it could definitely have been worse, especially with the way South Carolina played. So take us through your team, how they did in week number 9.
Yeah, I think I nailed the quarterback position. Joey Aguilar put up 390 yards against Kentucky.
Yep.
When I saw that they had 35 points midway through the second quarter, I felt pretty good. Yep. They were moving the football. Although Kentucky did move the football in this game as well. It was a little bit of a shootout towards the end. But yeah, 390 total yards. That will do it every week. Ahmad Hardy, he had a quiet 99. I mean, Missouri's offense was a little clunky when Purbulla left with the injury. They're definitely going to have to rely on Hardy with the true freshman quarterback the rest of the way. Really their third string quarterback because Sam Horn got hurt in garbage time week 1. So that injury really comes into play now.
Yeah.
Cam Coleman, I mean, he just continues to go as this Auburn offense does. I mean, Auburn did put up 30 points on the weekend. They switched quarterbacks from Jackson Arnold to Ashton Daniels, who was at Stanford before this. So I don't know. Maybe that will give him some juice. But in Coleman's case, not really. Just 27 yards. And then the Alabama defense. Yeah, I mean, they were down most of this game. South Carolina's offense showed life. Wasn't the performance I wanted out of them, but still 183 yards. That's really good in the heart of the SEC schedule. We'll see if it holds up.
Yeah, 2 impressive weeks for you back-to-back here. So we will see if that is enough to get you back-to-back wins. And as I say, when the quarterback has less yards than the defense, that's going to be a bad story for whatever team it has. And once again, that happened to me in back-to-back weeks. Taylor Green, though, even in the loss, I was very disappointed with Arkansas. I really thought that they had that game, and Auburn really took over in the fourth quarter. But 282 total yards, Reuben Owens. I mean, did they really need him? Not really, because Marcel Reed was able to run a lot of yards against that LSU defense as he did last year in the second half. But 44 yards for Owens. Chris Brazel Jr., I will take it, 138 yards. And Tennessee's defense, I've learned my lesson. Just don't pick against Kentucky because it feels like, Kentucky all of a sudden has the best offense in the country. But 476 yards, and once again, I'm in the negative. So congrats, Wade. You now move to 3 wins. So now 6-3. So the gap is starting to close. So we will see if that winning streak continues here heading into week number 10. So now let's go on to week number 10. And our SEC fantasy rules, as always, are rostered. This is how it's built: one quarterback, one running back, a receiver, and a defense. Then the two rules that we do weekly here: you cannot draft the same player twice in back-to-back weeks. And once you draft a defense, you can't use him again. And let me tell you, once it gets to these type of weeks, it is absolutely frustrating to pick a defense, especially when you have some good ones on the bye week, because I know I have Texas A&M just waiting to get used at any point, but that survivor defense will definitely get you. Now let's move on to our draft. Two talented quarterbacks. Taylor Green, it feels like he's been one of the more popular picks at the quarterback position, along with Trinidad Chambliss of Ole Miss. But talk about Taylor Green's matchup against Mississippi State defense that has really been lacking the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, kind of taking a page out of your book here, going with Taylor Green. He's been a real bright spot on the Arkansas team. So if I got to feature a Razorback, it's going to be Taylor Green. Just one of the better dual threat options in the conference and really the country. So I think at home against a team that's arguably worse than Arkansas, I think it's the time to rock with Taylor, and I think he goes out with a bang. I wanted to get him in here now because, I mean, if Arkansas continues to lose and he gets banged up, there's not much to play for. So, I think it's a good week to get him in there.
Yeah, good week to also get Trinidad Chambliss going up against the South Carolina defense. I know they played well most of that game against Alabama, but this Ole Miss offense, one of the best in the SEC. And Chambliss, ever since that Austin Simmons has been put on the back burner, Trinidad Chambliss has really been a phenomenal quarterback for this Ole Miss offense. So look for the Rebels. I don't really see this game being close. I know that South Carolina played like their best game of the season, but I just think that they come back down to earth, especially under the lights in Oxford. I expect that to be a ruckus crowd. So give me Trinidad Chambliss. And this is my first time using him. It took me so long to get him. I'm going to use him against the Gamecocks. Now let's go on to the running backs. Devon Booth, Mississippi State. We've had Fluff Bothwell before, but Fluff Bothwell has been dealing with an injury. Mike Washington returns to my roster. He's really been consistent running back for me. So talk about Devon Booth matchup of Mississippi State this week against the same matchup that we're going to be talking about here in Arkansas.
Yeah, Devon Booth gave this offense some juice. He did everything he could possibly do for Mississippi State. And they're almost upset of Texas. Booth impressively had 100 yards rushing and 85 yards receiving. So he's a true dual threat. I think Bothwell could return this week, but I think it's going to be more in a limited capacity. So if I had to pick one, I'm rocking with Booth. We'll see if that backfires or not. But, he just had too good of a week last week for them to move on from him. I mean, Blake Shapen looked a lot better with a reliable target out the backfield too. So I think Mississippi State might have found something, and his counterpart there, Washington, I think he's going to have a good game too. I think this could be a very high scoring game if these two defenses don't show up.
And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of players from this matchup, because we believe that's going to be one of the more higher scoring games here of this SEC slate heading into week 10. But Mike Washington, like I mentioned, he's really been the most consistent running back for Arkansas, and this has been a really talented offense. The defense obviously has been lacking, but Mike Washington has been there, so I'm going to go Washington once again. Every time I pick him, he puts up 100 yards, so we will see if that happens once again. Now let's go on to the pass catchers. One new face here, SEC Fantasy, Zachariah Branch. We did add a Georgia receiver. That was Colby Young. Just pick and choose for the Georgia Bulldogs. He went with Isaiah Satenga of Oklahoma. So talk about Satenga's matchup. I know that you picked him a couple of weeks ago pretty well. So what are you expecting for the Sooners and trying to get a bounce back win against the Tennessee defense that just let up the kitchen sink against Kentucky?
Exactly. I mean, big plays left and right for receivers against that Tennessee defense. Georgia put up some yards against them. I think Branch had a touchdown against them when they played. Yeah. So I think this is a clear number one receiver for Oklahoma, and I think he'll continue to feast. Now, it's a matter of if Mateer's fully healthy and can air it out. I mean, I think that the Tennessee defense will bend, but maybe not break. I think if Mateer was fully healthy, I think that this would be a slam dunk pick, but as it stands, I think he'll get enough action to, maybe get 60 or 70 yards.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, it's pick and choose of the Georgia wide receivers. I'm going to give Zachariah Branch the spotlight. He did have a good game the last time that we saw Georgia in that high-scoring shootout against Ole Miss. Will it be a high-scoring shootout against Florida? I don't really believe so, but I do expect this Florida team to really have some grit coming off of the bye week and Billy Napier being out of the program. You see it with interim coaches this year. We saw with UCLA. We will see if we see with LSU coming off of the bye week, but give me Zachariah Branch and a talented offense. Now let's go on to the dreaded defenses. Speaking of Kentucky, you are going to roll with the Cats defense going up against an Auburn offense that has been inconsistent, and Vandy defense against Kentucky. So talk about Kentucky. You almost wanted Tennessee, but I think I gave you some words of wisdom that don't trust the Volunteers ever this season. So talk about the Wildcats defense and how they can shut down whoever it is at the quarterback in this Auburn offense.
Yeah, after checking the box score of that Tennessee game, I had to change my mind. My thought process there is Mateer fully healthy, and are they going to be able to move the ball? But I think the answer is yes, because that Tennessee defense just really isn't that good, and I think it's going to keep them from being a contender. But let's talk about the team that put the damage on Tennessee, and that was the Kentucky Wildcats. Surprisingly, that offense really did show up, and the defense, it's had its weeks. It's had good weeks. It's had bad weeks. But this is more about the matchup. They are playing Auburn. Auburn's still trying to figure out who their quarterback is in week number 10. They do have a good emerging running back. But overall, I just think that this is one of the more limited offenses in the league. So even though it's a road game and Kentucky hasn't won a conference game, I'm going to go with the Cats.
Do you think it's crazy that we're seeing both of these logos under defense?
Yeah.
Do you think that this would have been possible a couple years ago on the show? Look at us here in the big 2025 up. I'm going to go with Vandy's defense. Arch Manning did get banged up. We will see if Manning is a go or not. But even if Manning plays in this one, I trust Vandy's defense. They will really shut down a really talented Missouri offense. I know that Bo Pribula was hurt the majority of that game. But Ahmad Hardy, if you keep him under 100 yards, that's a win, in my opinion. So I'm going to trust the Vandy defense. I almost went them last week. I regret that decision very greatly. Obviously, Wade would have won anyways. But give me Vandy's defense. They definitely have earned a spot on the roster. So Commodores, give me under 400 yards is what I'm looking for.
Under 400
at this point. But Kentucky and Vandy will be our defenses. We will keep track of those rosters, and we'll be back on next week's show to look at how the results did. Now let's go on to our Week 10 games and pick them. And we are going to start off hot here with our SEC top game of the week. It is at 11 a.m. It is a top 20 matchup. Number 9, Vandy at number 20, Texas. And last year's matchup was pretty darn close against a very talented Texas team that made it to the college football playoff. But Vandy coming off of a big win against Missouri. Texas, like I mentioned earlier, coming off of that thrilling overtime win on the road against a very talented Mississippi State team. So who do you got between the Commodores and the Longhorns at high noon on Saturday?
I was starting to believe in Texas. I really was, but they do not deserve to have a number 20 by their name. They should have lost on Saturday. I think Diego Pavia has just got a grip on college football right now. And yeah, he came up short against Alabama, but they also didn't beat Texas at home last year. I think he gets it done on the road. Give me Vanderbilt.
All right, so going with the Commodores. I do expect this to be a lower score matchup. I know Texas is coming off a high-scoring game, but Vandy's defense and this offense is going to want to play to their style. Vandy's going to want to control the time of possession. Look at Vandy's wins this season. That's what they have been able to do, control the time of possession and limit the big plays and a guy like Arch Manning step on the field there. So I expect Vandy to play to their style, and I think that style is going to win them the game here. It is a tough environment. I know that Texas, honestly, like you mentioned, they probably should have lost that game. Didn't really look too good the majority of that, especially the defensive side. A lot of big runs from Devon Booth. So could we see the same both with Diego Pavia and Cedric Alexander? So I expect this one to still be close. Texas is definitely going to get up for this. They're not going to overlook Vandy, especially with how close a game it was last season. But give me the Commodores. Chet is going to go the other way. He's going to go with Texas. But Wade and I are rolling with go Diego go for this one. Now let's move on to the Georgia and Florida game. Number 5, Georgia versus Florida in Jacksonville, Florida. I believe this one's going to start to shift around a couple of places the next couple of years. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But Florida, obviously coming off of the bye week, no longer having Billy Napier on the sideline. So we will see how motivated this Florida team will be now moving forward. Last time we saw Georgia, they did sneak out a win against a very talented Ole Miss team at home against a high-scoring shootout. So how do you see the world's largest outdoor cocktail party finishing here in 2025?
I mean, Georgia's just owned this one for a little bit. But Lagway is playing better. I mean, he probably had his best game of the year. Last time we saw him against Mississippi State, I just still think this Georgia team's too talented to drop this one. I think it will be a little bit closer than people think, though.
Yeah, I expect Florida to really come prepared for this one. This is a very talented defense. I mean, the defense has really kept them in every single game. A couple of outside, like the Miami game, got away from them. But, Georgia, their talented offense. Gunnar Stockton has really been playing well. We talk about, like, Trinidad Chambliss, Marcel Reed. But Gunnar Stockton has really had a phenomenal season. So I'm going to go with Georgia. And this one, like you mentioned, they pretty much own this rivalry here for the past couple of years. I do expect Florida to really hang around, but in the fourth quarter, like the Ole Miss game, Georgia will pull away. And Chet agrees as he also rolling with the Dogs there. So no respect for the Gators coming off of the bye. Now let's move on to Mississippi State at Arkansas. I know it's not an appealing game just because of their records, but this is still a big game for Mississippi State at least. If they do want to get to those 6 wins of bowl eligibility, Arkansas pretty much would have to win out to get to that benchmark. So how do you see this one faring between the Dogs and the Hogs as we've seen in SEC Fantasy? Expect a lot of points and maybe take the over if you are a betting man.
Yeah, it does have the highest point total of the weekend, and I think that's warranted. It's at 67, so I could see it being right around there. Yeah, I mean, for Arkansas, you've been in so many close games. You took A&M to the ropes at home just a couple weeks ago, and I think we all had a lot of confidence in them to beat Auburn last week, and they just couldn't. So I just don't know if it's ever meant to be for Arkansas. I mean, we've tried hyping them up.
The same for Mississippi State.
Yeah, but like Mississippi State, like I don't know. I think look, I had Arkansas winning like a game or two this year. I didn't have Mississippi State winning anything. Yeah. So for Mississippi State to take 2 top 20 teams to overtime, I give them a little bit more credit. And honestly, I think that like that Tennessee loss was just fluky. So I don't know. I'm going to go with Mississippi State just because they have more to play for. Like you said, a bowl game is definitely still within reach. They got to get this one, though. I mean, for both of these teams, I mean, if you don't win this game, you might not win a conference game.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be a high-scoring game. Blake Shapen has been up and down. Taylor Green has really been coming on strong here. The same with Mike Washington Jr. But defenses have definitely been lacking. Arkansas has been all season. Mississippi State has had some games where you've had the defense really step up, make some big plays like that Arizona State game. But really outside of that, once you get the conference play, it's been really bad for them. I mean, I'm just going to go – this is a flip coin here. I'm just going to go with Arkansas. I just think that it was just a back-breaking loss for Mississippi State, and it's going to be hard to bounce back on the road against Arkansas. It's probably not going to be a lively environment in Arkansas. But I'm going to go with the home team here. I just feel like Arkansas is due for a win at some point at home. They can't just keep losing every single game the rest of the season. But I'm going to go with Arkansas like in like a 42-38 type of game. It's going to be something wild like that. You're the lone bulldog there, as Chet and I are.
I'm surprised by that.
Yeah, I am surprised too. I thought that Chet was going to go Mississippi State, but I guess he's rolling with the home team there. So, Wade, you have an opportunity to either climb above the leaderboard or drop down the leaderboard, depending on how this matchup goes.
Let's go to Von Booth, baby.
Yep, absolutely. Now let's talk about the next matchup, another night game. South Carolina at number 7, Ole Miss. South Carolina coming off a heartbreaking loss at home against number 4 Alabama. Ole Miss coming off of a big road win against Oklahoma. So it looks like two teams pretty much heading in opposite directions at this point in the season. So who do you got winning this one in Oxford?
Yeah, I mean, South Carolina did show us a little bit of life on offense. Lenora Sellers did all he could. But, I mean, they had it, right? And they just blew it. So it just makes it tough to trust a Gamecock team against another top 10 team. So I'm going with Ole Miss at home. Not much thought to this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Ole Miss here. I think that South Carolina is pretty much similar to Mississippi State. They got their hearts really ripped out of their chests. I think that was the last gasp. Maybe for Shane Beamer. Maybe he's heading somewhere else. Maybe taking the Virginia Tech job at this point. But I'm going to go with Ole Miss. I just don't think that this one's going to be close. And Chet also rolling with the Rebels. So all rolling with Ole Miss.
Lane Kiffin got his night game, by the way.
Yeah, he did, which it's definitely going to be rocking. He's been calling for students and the fans to show up, and I definitely believe that they will, especially for a team that's looking to be a college football playoff block. Now let's move on to the next game, another top 25 matchup, number 18 Oklahoma and number 14 Tennessee, two high-powered offenses. Defense-wise, we did see Oklahoma's defense struggle against a talented offense now with Joey Aguilar at home. This is their annual dark mode game, so Tennessee will be wearing the all black. So how do you see this one pairing out between Oklahoma and Tennessee? It feels like a playoff eliminator for both of these teams, especially Oklahoma with the two losses.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this Tennessee defense just isn't good.
No.
And John Mateer could pop up healthy any week now. We just don't know when he's going to. So it wouldn't surprise me to see Oklahoma exploit this defense. But I'm going to go with the safer pick and go with the home team here.
Yeah, you know me. I don't ever pick against Tennessee when they're wearing their dark mode unis. That's one of my favorite uniform combinations. I'm a sucker for those type of uniforms. So, yeah, I think it's going to be another high-scoring game, man. I just think that John Mateer, he's starting to get healthier and getting closer to that 100%. But if you watch the Ole Miss game, we saw Tory Blaylock have a 100-yard game just a little bit too late for your pick there in SEC Fantasy. But this is going to be another high-scoring shootout. It feels like whoever's going to have the ball last is going to win. So give me the Volunteers to win this one. And Chet's also going with Tennessee. So I'm a little bit surprised that none of us are going with Oklahoma. But, I mean, it's Neyland Stadium at night. That's one of the most toughest environments in all the conference. So we're all rolling with the balls. And with this, Oklahoma, if they do have a loss, they would be eliminated. Tennessee, even with a loss here, wouldn't be out of it with 10-2. They just have to win out like they did last season. Now let's move on. Wow, this is our primetime game. What a game this will be between Kentucky at Auburn. Kentucky looking to find their first conference win. Auburn, I believe they got their first conference win last week against Arkansas, So how do you see this barn burner going down on Saturday night?
Kentucky plays at night a lot for a team that's no good. Kudos to Hugh Freeze for going to the backup quarterback. I think it was a needed move. It turned the team's fate, and they were able to erase an early hole and win a road game. So now they get to come home. Man, it's a shame this Auburn team couldn't put it together because this schedule is not that hard. You get Arkansas and Kentucky back-to-back weeks. I think they get a little momentum and get a win here. I don't know if that's good for the future of the program, though, because, like I said, I think John Summerall is a tailor fit for this Auburn job. And if Hugh Freeze keeps winning, it's going to be hard to move on from him. Yeah,
who would have thought that Hugh Freeze would have survived longer than Brian Kelly did? It feels like we were just waiting for Hugh Freeze and that announcement there. But, Kentucky, that has really turned it on here in the last couple of weeks. This offense is really finding an identity. So this is going to be a very close game, another fourth quarter game. It feels like Auburn has always been in a fourth quarter game pretty much all this season. But it's at home here. I just think that, Jordan Hare is going to be a little bit too much for Kentucky. And Kentucky's defense hasn't been that great, let's be honest with you. I mean, it was a high-powered offense, but Auburn will also have their way. And I think that Cam Coleman needs to get involved in this one. Same with Eric Singleton. They got to get their receiver involved some way and somewhat. But give me Auburn. Chet's also going to go with the Auburn Tigers, so a clean sweep. It feels like we didn't really have too many disagreements. That's like the type of games that we have this week. So we will see if we have any surprises this week. Now let's move on to hot topics. And boy, oh boy, Coach O is already saying that BK never embraced the state of Louisiana. Do you agree with the former LSU head coach here?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think that Brian Kelly came in with a business-like mindset, and a lot of it I appreciate. I mean, I think he cleaned up a lot of the nonsense that Coach O left behind, maybe because Coach O embraced the state a little too much and brought some party culture to it. So I think that Brian Kelly, like I said, my word for him is stubborn.
Yeah.
He wanted to do it his way and was convinced it could be.
There you go, Bird King. That's what their slogan is.
Yeah, BK, have it your way.
Yeah, pretty much. That's exactly what he pretty much had. But let's move on to some playoff talk. We haven't really talked about the college football playoff. We will over the next couple of weeks, maybe do our official 12-team playoff prediction. But which SEC teams at the moment do you feel most confident that can make this 12-team playoff?
I think you're probably going to see 4 teams. I think there's enough spots there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I think you're at this minute going to see A&M and Alabama in the conference championship, and I think that even the loser will make it. So as long as that probably isn't their third loss, Alabama could be a little tricky if they were to lose because they do have the out of conference loss. And then I think that you'll see Ole Miss slide in there, and then probably either one of Vanderbilt, Tennessee, or Oklahoma, depending on how this weekend goes.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. 4 teams seems about right now. I would have Alabama and Texas A&M in the SEC championship. The loser would still get in. I mean, A&M, to me at this point, it feels like no worse than 11-1. I definitely think that they could go 12-0. I think their toughest matchups, like you mentioned, are both road games. You have at Mizzou and at Texas. But Georgia would also be my third team there. And then Ole Miss. I think that's right now the 4 teams. I think
I forgot about Georgia.
Like Vandy and Tennessee are going to play each other. Like if Vandy loses this week, then the road for them comes tougher. But if Vandy gets a win against Texas, I think their schedule definitely eases up outside of Tennessee. I think like teams like Missouri going to play themselves out. Oklahoma, Tennessee as well. But I think that the locks right now to me feel like Alabama, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Georgia at this moment. Now let's move on to the next one. How can Mississippi State bounce back? Well, it looks like you have answered that question, but just going back to that game, what went wrong, Mississippi State? You have that big lead. What went wrong for the Bulldogs?
I don't know. I mean, they very similar to the Tennessee game. I just felt like they didn't know how to play with the lead. Like they didn't think they were supposed to be there. I don't know if I didn't pay enough attention to it if they drastically changed their approach, their play calling, got uber conservative or not.
They definitely did.
But if that's the case, I think you got to just keep the pedal to the metal if you're in the lead, because your defense is not good enough to just melt the clock.
All right, let's get into our last question. I know that we didn't do a big recap, but let's go ahead and put a bow here on week number 9. Which team impressed you the most out of all of our SEC teams that were in action here in this past weekend?
Got to keep rocking with Texas A&M.
Yeah.
I mean, they were my preseason surprise team.
That is true.
And they backed it up in a big way.
Very elite right now.
Yeah. That's a game they would lose most of the time when A&M's been in this situation in the past. And, man, they came in and showed LSU who was boss.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that pick. I'm going to go with a different pick here. Ole Miss just continues to impress me week in, week out. It was a tough environment at Oklahoma. I know that Oklahoma, you're dealing with still John Mateer not being 100%. That was one of the more tougher defenses they had to face, and the offense just continues to roll with Trinidad Chambliss and Kawan Lacey. We talk about Ahmad Hardy. I think that Kawan Lacey deserves as much flowers as he does. So that is going to be it for our SEC Talk Week number 10 show, jam-packed show, talking about Brian Kelly being fired. We will see if we have any more firings, because I tell you, if Auburn finds a way to lose to Kentucky, that better be it for Hugh Freeze at Auburn, because my gosh, honestly, I think that Auburn fans are tired of him already, but we will see what happens in week number 10 to see if we have any more surprises. And we'll be back in week number 11 as we'll have some more rivalry games. We'll have the LSU Alabama game and so many more games we're going to be talking about. So we do appreciate everybody for tuning into tonight's SEC Talk. We will be back next Wednesday night, and then after that, we will be back to our regularly scheduled program, both back on Sunday or Monday night. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Enjoy your college football watching this weekend. Looks like it's starting to feel more like fall here in the South. I walked out the door. It's like, whoa, I need to put on some pants. But I do appreciate everybody for tuning in to the Nine Show, and we will see you all next time.